Welcome to Around the Bases, the pop culture and sports podcast with your host,
Charlie Seamar, along with
Testa.
our
oh,
special guest,
guest.
Testa.
I think I did it wrong, but here I am.
No, you
No,
did it
not at
right.
all. Not at
And
all.
it's not
Building
being
up the
edited.
anticipation.
It's not being edited. I'm Tim Sternberg, and we are so happy to have you here, buddy. Nick Testa.
Yes,
Oh,
sir.
how are you, sir?
Great to
Doing
see you.
well. Nice to see you too as well.
One of the most interesting, fascinating people that I so enjoy talking with over in Atlanta. Fellow We Are Family contestant, but much more than that. Nick is a man of amazing stories and experiences, and just enjoyed becoming friends with you, sir, in Atlanta. And I know Charlie feels very similar.
Definitely, definitely. And I gotta say, when I heard you on another member of We Are Families podcast, Pop Culture Roulette, the great Nicholas Pepin, when I listened to your interview there, I thought I knew a lot about you. And I was like blown away
Me too.
at some of the music experiences, your background. Like I was like genuinely shocked.
Well, I have plenty of stories. Well, when we met was We Are Family, and I don't feel like I could really say anything. There were so many people talking all at once. I had a hard time really diving in. But I'm happy to tell you any story you want to hear.
Yeah, what's funny is I knew you were big into the music when about maybe a week or so into our time there, you were making a theme song for Franklin, another fellow
Yeah.
member of We Are Family. And I got to see a little behind the scenes of you mixing it, and you played it like it was, I gotta say, it was very impressive, and I thought it was so cool.
I really
And
appreciate that. I was so excited that you were excited because to me it's something that I do all the time, and I'm and all of my friends around here were all musicians, so it's like it's second nature. But it's so cool to be around somebody who doesn't necessarily do that all the time and gets the excitement out of it.
And here I was, in the hotel, I was like, wow, you're doing a theme song for Franklin. That's so cool. And just out of the blue, because I also, well, it's in hiatus right now, but I do a TikTok trivia show called Trivia Chat. And you're like, oh, I could write you a theme song for the TikTok. I'm like, really? He's like, yeah. And like, boom, you knocked it out like so quick. And it became, because of, just the way it feels, it became the theme song to Around the Bases. And when you hear our intro, that is Nick Testa, 100% Nick, who
I was gonna make sure
gracious,
that was said because that was, I mean, it's so good, and
Thank
so
you.
we
good.
can't thank you enough for that again.
Do, do,
I
do, do. I did. I
that's
love that.
probably one of my favorite jingles that I've ever written. I love that one.
I do too. As a matter of fact, let's play it again. It's the magic of editing. If only you got residuals one day. I think you would have about $2 as far with the amount of times it's been played. But yeah, it's so appreciated. Dude, you are a gracious human being, just so kind and so giving, and which was amazing to me to segue a little bit because I told you this and I told Charlie this. I'm randomly on YouTube one day, and what pops up but a Night Beast music video. Night Beast, of course, is in that, of course, people might not know, the listeners might not know, but you are the lead singer of this band. And I just was rocking out. Like, it is really great music. Like, even if I didn't know you at all, it would be absolutely something that I would say, oh, this is my jam because, metal, everything. And, it's just so, yeah. You rock, literally.
That's so nice. Thank you very much.
So,
Oh,
how'd you get your start in the music industry?
When I was in high school, I started going to independent concerts here in Dayton, Ohio, where I grew up. And from it was in like Knights of Columbus halls, like rental halls, I've met some people who said, "Hey, we're throwing a show together. Um, 50 kids will be there, or whatever." It's all bands from the area. Sometimes, like, because I would go every weekend, after a while, as bands from all over the country would come in. But doing that all the time and making all my friends from there, um, I met some bands from out of town. And the first band that I ever toured with, I was selling merchandise for a band called Punchline out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And through working with them, I met all of these other bands and just making connections and making friendships. And that got me on the road. And the band that I was in years and years ago ended up being Hawthorne Heights, and they got really big. And they hired me to work for them. So through connections and through playing music with different people, I just got to live on a bus for 10 years.
That's
That's
so cool.
amazing. That's like I mean, it doesn't, maybe to the person it's happening. I don't speak for you, but sometimes, oh, it's not as cool as it seems, but to me it seems cool. Like it's the rock star life.
There were
Has its ups and
times,
downs.
yeah, there were times where I definitely knew how cool it was, and there were definitely times where I looked around like, I can't believe this is my life. Like once I got to swim in the ocean in Australia, and like the next day got to watch Nine Inch Nails from one of those those giant swings at a carnival, like for free. I was being paid to be there, and it was insane. But I was also like a young, kind of egotistical guy where I thought, well, yeah, I could conquer this. I could do pretty much anything. And then I got to reality in my 30s, but it was a really, really cool experience.
So this is what I'm talking about, folks. When I say one of the most interesting human beings I've ever, the stories that Nick has, my mouth would continuously drop from just this, because I grew up as a kid of the 80s and 90s. So when you're mentioning a lot of these bands, I'm like, oh, I'm connecting, like, oh, watching Nine Inch Nails from some kind of ride or something. I'm like, what?
Crazy.
It's amazing.
What's wild is that this was a time before smartphones. So there's very little proof that I did any of these things. I was trying to tell, I work with teenagers, and one of my 100 jobs, I work with teenagers, and I was trying to tell them that, oh yeah, I worked with this band, I toured with this band, I've been all over the country with them and stuff, and they didn't believe me. And I was struggling to prove it because we didn't have photos from them. Like we had some people who had nice cameras, but there's no smartphones. So we didn't take pictures of everything.
It
Like,
was kind of lame to take a camera out back then and take a picture.
exactly.
Like no one did
Yeah.
that. Like,
No, because
yeah,
you're living. You're like, you're
right.
in the moment. Um, but I wish that I had some photos from then. I have no photos from being overseas or anything like that, and I wish I did, but we just didn't have that capability.
Well, we believe you. We absolutely believe you. And there's video evidence of your later work with Night Beast and the rock that you did. So it's clear that that came from a culmination of work that you did, and
Yeah,
Testa
but to
story.
keep it, we don't want to go too deep. But name who else did you get to tour with?
Yeah, good question.
There were a few other big names I remember.
So the bands that I worked for primarily were Hawthorne Heights, Bayside, Metro Station. I worked for Brand New for a couple months, and why do I say anything? I don't know why I forgot they're one of my favorite bands. And Say Anything, I worked for them too. All in that like emo milieu kind of.
Yeah, and at least for me, growing up, that was like a lot of it, a lot of the what we listened to.
Oh, absolutely.
So when you did this work with the bands, what were some of the things that you would do with them? Like can you tell us some of the
Yeah.
jobs? Because I know it was a lot, right?
For the most part, I was a guitar technician. So I was the guy that before the band comes on, goes out and checks the microphones or sets
Yeah.
up all the amplifiers and does all that kind of stuff. I did that. And if something broke on stage, I would run and go fix that. Or if the people were throwing things on stage, I would run and get them out. Also did all the like loading and unloading, and fixed all the guitars, strung all the guitars, tuned all the guitars, all that kind of stuff.
Were you getting hounded for set lists?
Yeah, we would have people ask for set lists and picks and drumsticks and that, like, and some were nicer than others. I would always give them to the people who were nice. Like if somebody would just scream set list at me, I wouldn't give them anything because that's not
Yeah,
Yeah,
nice.
teachable moment, right? We work with kids.
Yeah.
That's it.
I am a human being. Please
Yes.
talk to me like I am.
Treat me sufficiently.
Yeah.
wouldn't expect anything less. I love that.
So I DJ too, and the new thing now is people will, instead of asking for a request, they'll just put it on their phone and hold their phone up to my face.
That's so obnoxious.
It really is, and I don't even play loud, so I just say, "Hey, I can talk. You can just ask me. It's fine. I'm right here. We'll talk like human beings. It's easy."
I'm gonna guess those requests do not get played.
A few years ago, I wouldn't have, but now I play pretty much any request.
You're a good dude.
But if it goes over poorly, I do say on the microphone who made this request.
Yes, I love that. Yes, and then
It's
they have
not
to-
my DJing
Yeah.
expertise that's picking
Just so
this
you
song
know, it's
out.
this guy's fault.
Yes. Spotlight,
love
please.
that.
Spotlight.
What kind of equipment do you use when you're DJing?
So DJing now is much more compact and much easier than it was years and years ago. I use a tractor controller,
Mhm.
which is two decks, and I use a MacBook Pro and my headphones, and that's all I need.
So is that tractor, that's what mixes the music. Like when you're
Yes, so it's essentially like you have two turntables and a mixer in the middle, right? But it's all digital, and so I would play one track on one side of the controller, and then when I'm ready to fade over to the other, or if I want to mix in something from the other song, I put the fader in the middle and mix them together.
being a DJ is such a cool experience. Not just playing the music, but the interaction and
Sure.
just, it's a performance. I mean, the
A lot of
selection.
times it is. Yeah, a lot of times it is. A lot of times it's like mowing the grass, but sometimes it's like performance. It really all depends on what the room is and what the
What
audience.
energy they give you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is this mostly like in bar setting, or do you do weddings and stuff like that?
It's mostly a bar, and I've worked at the same bar for about 10 years. And it's interesting to see the generations come and go too. So when I first started DJing 12 years ago, smartphones were around and streaming was around, but it wasn't as prevalent as it is now. So there was still a bit of monoculture where people still listened to the radio or had like not necessarily MTV, but most people knew the 10 popular songs, 40 popular songs, right? Well, now everybody has their own radio in their pocket, and there are millions of different songs that they could listen to. So I'll have at one place, I'll have somebody who wants to hear 90s country, and then I'll have somebody who wants to hear like Bauhaus, and then I'll have somebody who wants to hear really like heavy hip hop, and they're all together, but they all want to hear what they want to hear right now. And sometimes that's fairly difficult to work with, but it's more of a challenge that I enjoy too.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Interesting.
how do you go from like a 90s country song to like the Black Eyed Peas? Like it's hard to make that transition sometimes.
It is. So you have to kind of I know I make it way more important than it is, but I think part of being a DJ is reading a room and reading what
Mhm.
you can get away with and what you can't. It's almost like psychological. And so if somebody asks for something off the wall, I will tell them, I'll get to it, but it might take a minute. So just give me a second. Plus, I'd like to mix within beats per minute. So if everything is 128, which is like a fast, like a techno kind of beat, and they're asking for a song that's 90s hip hop, which is like in the low 90s, it's hard to match those up together. They don't match up by beats. So you have to
Right.
figure out a way to get there.
What is Nick Testa listening to right now? Like if you in your own personal kind of music, what are you listening
Sure.
to?
Well, I hate to say it, I don't listen to that much music anymore. I mostly listen to podcasts, but the music that I am listening to is a band called 4 Year Strong from Boston, Massachusetts, or Worcester, Massachusetts. They are like the pinnacle of all like the punk rock and emo-ish music that I've listened to for the last 20 years. They just did it better than anybody else. And they are, I think, what Night Beast wants to be when we grow up. They're so good. They're just so good. And so I listen to them a lot. And then I listen to the same stuff I listened to when I was a kid. So I'll go back and listen to Rancid or early Green Day or like the Interrupters. Have you ever heard them? They're fairly new, but
Mhm.
I'll listen to those. But lately, I've mostly just listened to podcasts about movies and comedy.
Any
Early
good
Green
ones?
Day was great. Yeah. What other podcasts?
Um, I listen to mostly stuff on the Ringer podcast network. So like the Rewatchables or the Watch or Big Picture. They just did a series called on their Prestige TV feed. They just did a series called um, Stick the Landing, and it is all about finales, like TV show finales, and if whether or not it was good or not.
Stick the
Like,
landing. I like the
yeah,
name there. That's good.
it's great, and it's hosted by Andy Greenwald, who is half of the Watch, and he's so good. He's so smart and funny. The only thing I'm noticing with podcasts, though, there's a word for it, and I can't think of what it is. But when you listen to one person or one group of people, you feel like you know them. They have no idea who I am. So it's like sometimes it's weird to like know these people's stories and their families, like, and all the things that they talk about, their little idiosyncrasies. And I don't know them at all, but I feel like they're my friends. It's crazy.
I get that 100%.
It's a
I
really weird feeling.
I totally understand. I love that concept. Stick the landing to see
Mhm.
if it took. I just watched Curb Your Enthusiasm's finale and he stuck the landing. Let me tell you.
Yeah, I was
I'm
gonna say
interested to
that's
see
gonna
what
go.
he's
That's a high score.
yeah. Unbelievable. But I'm interested to see what
Well,
he's going to say
I'm
about
sure
that.
they had to touch on the Seinfeld one there.
They
Speaking of,
haven't gotten to it yet. He did
haven't
it was
gotten
like
to
a
it.
kind
Oh,
of a teaser. There's only 6 episodes, but they did Friday Night Lights, which I loved, and it made me rewatch the series.
I haven't
Fri-
watched
I
it.
remember you had just recently rewatched it,
hmm
so it makes sense as to why.
because of that. Yeah, Friday Night Lights. They did Mad Men, Girls, uh, Twin Peaks, and one or two others. But Friday Night Lights. Oh, goodness. Now I can't remember. Oh, Eastbound and Down.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that was good. That was really funny.
Charlie had me put Friday Night Lights on my list. I have a list, a running list, and
Oh
so
yeah,
I
have
have
you
to
not
see it.
watched
Yeah.
that?
No.
And Eastbound and Down.
Oh,
Oh
I'll
yeah.
put that on the list.
Oh, you'll really like Eastbound and Down.
Oh, Eastbound
It's
and Down is so funny.
it's so funny and a lot of baseball stuff. And you like baseball.
Yeah.
Oh, I do like that. Have you watched The Boys on Amazon?
I have not. I read the comic.
Good.
I read the comic and it was a little brutal for me, so I don't think
Yeah,
I
it
can
is a
handle.
brutal show. I get it.
I
Okay,
don't
yeah.
think I can handle the show, but I have heard it's really good. People seem to really like it.
I
The
would say
brutal.
that really brutal is probably a good way to put it.
Yeah, I
And
would
and
say
might be light.
I was watching the first episode or something like that with my wife, and she's like, "Oh, what are you doing?" Like she could not deal with it. Yeah. It's shockingly brutal. I'll say
Yeah.
the initial shock of it was like,
Oh,
I
oh,
wasn't
okay.
expecting it. Yeah.
There's a couple shows like that that when I'm watching with Rosie, she'll like tell me when it's over, but keep
Yeah.
watching the show.
There have been some movies like that, and I'll have claw marks in my arm from her grabbing onto my arm. And those make the best movies. I don't know what it is. Speaking of pop culture, if you don't mind me asking, what kind of collectibles do you have behind you? I see some really cool stuff.
Yeah, I got a bunch of neat things. So, directly above my head is these are all Marvel action figures, mostly from the 90s, and then some from the last 10 years that were my son's. They're like the 10-inch figures. X-Men and just basic Marvel stuff. I think there's some Star Wars guys back there.
I
And
see
then
Data, I think. Yeah.
and just below the Marvel characters are all my starting lineups. And I think that if anyone in the country knows what starting lineups are, I think it's the two of you. Um,
100%.
um,
Definitely.
and so recently went to a toy show in Ohio, and it's like one of the biggest ones in the state. There were 600 tables of toy
Ooh,
dealers, right?
Wow.
wow.
And toys from the 50s all the way up to this year. They had zero starting lineups, not one. I didn't
How is
see
that possible?
because nobody cares about them because they're
It's
like
true.
because they're completely worthless. But
Yeah,
I
they're
but I love them. I
me
totally
too.
love them.
I was a geek for them. I was so like I used to buy the plastic that you put around so the card wouldn't
Uh-huh.
get messed up because you don't want the card to get messed up, right? And one day my brother, we were younger, he ripped open one. He's like, "Oh, look at Mark." I'm like, "What are you doing? Why are you
Oh, what are you
doing
doing?
that?" He took
I
Mark
have.
McGuire out of the packaging. I'm like, "Really?"
I don't know if you could see them there, but I have all
I
my
do on the wall. Those
Yeah,
are
on the wall there.
amazing. Do you have
all
the
my cards.
Cooperstown collection ones?
I think I have
I
one
love
or
that.
two.
Those are amazing.
For those that are listening,
I was just
he's
gonna
he's
say.
set up in a nice little office here. He's basically he's got a I saw the keyboard too there. So this is
Uh-huh.
probably where you
This is my studio.
produce in your studio. And then in the background he's got multiple shelves and just action figures galore.
Charlie's always mindful of our audience that's listening. I'm thinking it's only on YouTube for whatever reason. But yes, thank you, Charlie.
If you want, I can go through and say what every single one of them are. We'll be here for 3 weeks.
I understand that 100%, by the way. I get it. Would it be something that would be a thought for you in the future to go on another game show? Would that be something you'd like to do?
I don't know. I've thought about it a little bit, but I almost feel like it was lightning in a bottle.
Hmm.
I don't. I would be is the first one that I applied for, and I got a call back that day, right? So I think that if I applied for more and I didn't get calls back, I would get disappointed. So I feel like I'm just gonna ride out that one time. It
You're gonna
was
retire with a 1,000 batting average.
exactly.
Be a Hall of Famer.
It would have been nice to have had more questions to answer, but it was really great, incredible experience that I don't know that I could duplicate. I don't know that I could do that again. Plus, I was away from my family for 18 days, and
Yeah.
that's a little longer than I would like to be. It was wild. If I didn't meet you guys, I don't know what I would have done.
Yeah.
I think we all helped each other kind of cope. When you say lightning in the bottle, I couldn't agree more. It wasn't even necessarily about the show itself, but the experience of the bonding, and
Mhm.
it was just a very special 2.5 weeks of
Yeah,
just getting
absolutely.
to know people. And we had the pleasure and the blessing, I think, of being in a different hotel than a majority of the contestants. And that gave us the opportunity. We had nowhere else to run to, right? It
Yeah,
gave us the opportunity to really get to know everybody on a deeper level than we would have with 100 other people around us. So
I agree.
kudos to production for doing that because
Yeah,
it worked
whether it
out well
was
for us.
intentional or not, but it was like I think that had I been in that large hotel with all those people, I'd be more of a ghost than I was in the small hotel. I just get overwhelmed too easily with that many people around. So it was nice to only have, the 15 of us that were in that place that we could communicate with.
To your point, I spoke to I speak to some of the 100 that were across the street. Some of them just stayed in their hotel room. They just couldn't deal with, like you said, with all the people, and I understand that
So many
completely.
strong personalities, just like so much. And everyone was nice to me, but it's just too much. I can't handle that kind of stuff.
You have a lot of fans over there, by the way. I
Oh,
talked to Melanie, loves you.
she's the
Melanie
best.
B, she just is like loves you. Nev loves you. A lot of people over there just adore you, Nick. And this is someone who you didn't really, like you said, you didn't go across the street too much, but that you just made such an impression at the studio that people are just fans of yours. And I don't blame them. They're right.
It's hard not to be.
Absolutely. What movies are you watching? Like, have you seen any good films lately?
I
Not to
started
put you on the spot.
watching Poor Things, and it made me terribly uncomfortable, which I think was what's supposed to. But it was beautifully made. Like it was super cool. I didn't finish it. Made me a little uncomfortable, so I stopped watching that. I feel like I've been what have it? But I just started and finished the first two seasons of Fargo. I haven't watched too many movies,
Yes.
but lots of shows. Fargo is so good. I mean,
Yes. Welcome.
man,
It's
And
on my
you've got a
list.
couple more seasons to go.
are 3 and 4 really good? I know 5 is supposed to be really good.
Okay. Two was two the one with Ewan McGregor, or is that three?
3 is Ewan McGregor. 2
Okay.
is Jesse Plemons and Kirsten Dunst.
Kirsten Dunst. Okay. I mean, maybe I'm a little biased. I think all the seasons are great, but
Okay.
Ewan McGregor playing twin brothers was a sight. It was
Okay.
and then the Chris Rock season's pretty good too.
I've heard that was
That's season 4. So season 5 was phenomenal.
yeah. Okay.
I've learned when Charlie tells me to like something to like it because he's usually right. He did you watch The Bear? That's such a
Yeah.
great show. Oh my
Bear's
God,
awesome.
that was really good. And he
Bear's
that's him. So yeah. So he's right.
I mean,
Charlie
I
put
can't.
the
You can't
stamp
give
of
me. You
approval.
can't give me credit for
Well, you're the one that
recommending a
told me
phenomenal
to watch
show. The
it.
show's just good.
But I wouldn't have
gotta give
watched it
credit
if
to
you
the
didn't
show.
kind of. I do give credit, but you pushed a little bit. Like, did you watch The Bear? Do you know what? I'm gonna get that off my list, and I watched it. It was fantastic. So, credit to you.
What
Yeah.
have you guys
So
have you watched any good movies?
I movie wise, yeah, I saw the new Ghostbusters, which I thought was
Oh,
fantastic.
good.
Really
Okay.
enjoyed that. Arthur the King, beautiful. It's a tearjerker,
Okay.
but a happy tearjerker and
Okay.
really motivating and nice. I think you would enjoy that. I think
Okay.
it was cute. But
Yeah,
not that I,
that's
I'm
on my
just
list.
saying.
I want to see that one.
Okay.
Oh, I
Cool.
put something on your list.
There we
It was
go.
on your list anyway.
Yeah, I saw the trailer for
um,
that. I can't remember what we were seeing, but it was in the trailer, and I knew I'd be a sucker for that movie. Do you know the premise of it, Nick?
I do not.
So they're like on this like not Amazing Race, but they're like on this like cross country multiple thing, and this like stray dog. They come upon this stray dog, and then they go like
in
miles and
Colombia.
miles and miles
Oh,
later,
Dominican
and the
Republic.
dog's still
Yeah.
there, and it's like it like follows them through like this crazy, like days long
Oh,
adventure.
okay. I've never even heard of that. That sounds awesome.
And
Okay.
it's based
Yeah.
on a true story. It actually happened.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It happened a little previous to the years it's set in, but
Okay.
it's a true story. And I the more you know, you remember that on NBC.
Yeah.
The more you know. Well, every
Yeah.
time I see a movie like that, it's like the more you know. I have to find out about the movie, and it's real. Mark Wahlberg. It's a great movie. And I don't recommend movies unless I really like them.
Sure.
TV shows. I've seen Ted, which I think is hilarious. I
Okay.
mentioned that in
Okay.
Nicholas's podcast. Funny if you like comedy, but it is raunchy.
Yeah,
I wouldn't
sure.
watch it
It's
around
Seth
a kid.
MacFarlane.
It's late '80s Boston, so like
Oh,
It is.
wow. Okay. That's probably fun. Okay.
It's so funny. Yeah, those are the big things right now.
Okay. Oh, I just finished Three Body Problem, and
oh, how was that?
it's cool. It's definitely cool. It's imaginative and smart. I enjoyed it. Maybe some of the physics stuff I didn't understand, but it didn't really matter because there was like pretty people.
Tim, that's from the Game of Thrones showrunners.
And I haven't even watched Game of Thrones yet. So
Yeah, but you know of it.
yes, I do. I do. I'll have to check it again. Put it on my list.
And Nick, did you watch Game of Thrones, right? Or did you
I
not?
watched the first 3 seasons. It's
Okay,
not
because I was gonna
but
say
I
there's a handful of people from Game of Thrones that are in Three Bodied Problem, right?
Oh,
I believe so.
Yeah, I think
that makes sense.
I think that there's at least 2, at least
Okay.
maybe more, but
Oh, are you're a fan of the Reds? Is that right?
I'm not like
the
so.
Phils.
Oh,
Yeah,
the Phillies. See that? Maybe I didn't listen enough.
It's okay. My dad's from Philadelphia, so I grew up. We had to watch Philadelphia sports, so I didn't even realize that like the Cincinnati teams were as close to us as they are. I'm only an hour from Cincinnati, but for professional sports, I really only watch Philadelphia teams, except for Columbus Blue Jackets. I got into them, and then had a cup of coffee with the Penguins, but I'm mostly Blue Jackets.
How far are you from Columbus? You said you're an hour from
One,
Cincy, but
we're right in the middle, so we're
oh,
about an
okay.
hour and 15 minutes from Columbus too.
What's the
Got it.
closest airport?
Dayton International. There's one in town.
Dayton.
It's
Yeah,
small, but it is definitely here
that's
and
awesome.
full right now because of the eclipse. All the hotels are full. Everything is full. All the flights were full. It's never full. It's wild.
Everybody came to Dayton.
Mhm.
Love it. I love it.
And as quickly as they came is as quickly as they'll leave.
I didn't. I didn't realize you were a fan of my rival. Wow.
I know it's true.
That's
I
okay.
will
Both our teams are
middle of the road, but
there
the Reds beat the Phillies in two
you
of
go.
three games, and the Mets beat the Reds
Beat
in
the
two of
Reds.
three games. So I think we're about even,
Yeah, give or take. And meanwhile, half of it is good for Charlie and his Cubs in that division. So
baby.
No, you both of you guys are supposed to beat the Reds. All three. Supposed to sweep them.
how about we'll both beat the Cardinals for you? There you
That'll
go.
work.
That's good.
Charlie hates the Cardinals more than the
You and the
Reds.
rest of
So
them.
yeah, this baseball season's off to a pretty rocky start. I'll say that. It was good to see a Bryce Harper finally hit a home run. So
Well,
it took a little bit.
Rocky start depends on who you ask, though, right?
yeah, that's true.
Well,
And
this
there's
is true.
so many games. Like it's such a long season that the
It
beginning of the
really
season
is.
is. I don't know. You
As
would know better than I do, but I don't know how important it is to really get off to a crazy start like that.
Oh no,
not really.
it was either maybe 2018 or so. Whatever year the Nationals won.
Mhm.
Mid-May, mid-June, they were still below 500, and they were the World Series winner.
Oh wow.
So
Okay.
69 Mets were below 500 until they kind of picked up in the
Miracle
fall.
Mets.
The Miracle Mets. That's why they called them that. So yeah, it's kind of almost better not to burn out and fade away in baseball because the season is so long.
I actually just saw a really interesting stat the other day. I don't remember what year it was, but the Braves and Dodgers have combined to win over 100 games 18 times over the
Ugh.
last however many years.
Yeah.
And they've won the World Series 0 of those 18 seasons.
Wow.
So you just got to get in, honestly.
Yeah, that's wild.
And for our listeners, we really enjoyed a nice day at the game in Atlanta, rooting against the Braves, the three of us.
Yeah,
that
a
was
lot of
fun. I enjoy it. See, that's all the stuff that it was really the best part of the trip for me.
It really was.
Sharing Ubers and one time fitting into a smaller Uber than all of us.
Hey, but then it worked out because then on the way home we got a Tesla.
Yeah, we did.
We did. That was an amazing ride.
After Steak
I
and Shake.
remember that. Yes. We were like, ooh, it's nice and smooth. And
It was
we're
so
kings.
smooth. That was awesome. It was what I think was so cool to me is that, the day previous was when I was working on that song with Franklin. And Charlie, you came in to watch that process, and I was kind of telling you a thing or two about what I know the best. And I don't know a ton about baseball, but sitting with you guys and hearing your experience with the game and what it means to you and what was happening on the field meant a ton to me. I feel like I kind of got back into baseball from that. And it was a really,
That's
Love
really
that.
awesome. That's
cool
I
that's
love
a
that.
win right there.
We both win that day, definitely.
And then we were able to find the big Nachos helmet.
Uh-huh.
Oh, yeah, I remember
Yep.
that. We were
We won.
after the game. We were looking for through the seats.
And I still am using on a daily basis the big Brave Stadium Cup.
That's awesome. I hope that you wash it, but that is
Well,
great.
so it's funny is instead of carrying, a big bowl of water and having it spill everywhere, I just
Yeah,
fill that up and pour it into Rocket's bowl.
I
So
do.
it's
Yeah, I
simply
do that
used
with
for
a Blue
water, but
Jacket
it
show.
is used
Yep.
daily.
I
Yep.
love that. I love
Yeah.
that. I got you. I got we went to see Billy Joel about a month ago, and I got
Yes.
a giant Tampa Bay Buccaneers bucket for Charlie that I'm going to bring up to Chicago when I see
Was it a
it.
popcorn bucket?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right.
It wasn't my popcorn, but I got back to the hotel. I'm like scrubbing it and washing it. And it brought back memories of being at that stadium looking for the buckets for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was awesome. Wow,
It's
man.
a nice, especially if you don't get it yourself, you just find one afterwards. It's a nice way
Bonus.
to get a collectible without,
Yeah. Well,
so
they're just gonna throw it away, and then it's
yeah,
not good for
Landfills.
the environment. So come on, we'll
win
just
win win.
it's a
Win-win.
win-win-win.
Collectors will collect, right?
No
We
matter
keep
the
stuff. We
cost.
keep plastic out of the landfills.
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah. It was a special time. It was just doing everything that we did, and getting to know you. Charlie and I know you. You know us, and being able to ask these questions and kind of dip into your mind of experiences is because of the conversations that we had in Lithia Springs at the True Hilton Hotel,
The greater Atlanta area.
the greater Atlanta. And yeah, for that I am extremely grateful for that experience to be able to do that. And you have, so speaking of Night Beast, which is your band, you guys have some shows coming up, right? You're going to be doing some shows.
We have a few coming up, all in Dayton, where we live. There was a day where we would play out of town, but we're all older. We all have families. We all have businesses, that kind of stuff. So those days are few and far between. So we mostly just play at home, and we'll do um, the next three shows that we have are all free shows. Two of which are like community festivals. This one that we have on the 20th of April is at a bar called Next Door, and it's a friend of mine's bar. It's a really cool new bar, and we're doing an acoustic set, which we've never done
Oh, I
before.
love
Oh,
that.
awesome.
That's
Um,
cool.
it will be interesting. We've been practicing, and the first practice went okay. The second practice, it was like we'd never picked up our instruments before.
Because you
So
have to cut the tempo down. Everything has to kind of go into that.
yeah, but the whole thing with our band is that it's high energy and lots of fun. So taking that element away is interesting. We'll see how it goes.
Hey, it's a
Um,
challenge, right?
it is a challenge, and I hope that the rest of the town is up for it too. But
I think it's going to be great. You have a way of just magically putting stuff together, and I'm sure that you will orchestrate with your band members a wonderful show.
well, thank you.
You said after that you're
Yeah.
doing two non-acoustic back to the
Yeah, so we have two full band, full energy shows. One is there's a thing called Riverscape. It's a venue right on the river, on the Great Miami River in downtown Dayton. And the show is called For Dayton by Dayton. And it's all Dayton artists. And it's a free show. And it's all kind of genres of music. So you'll have like some neo jazz, some funk, some hip hop, some R&B, and then whatever we do, and like a couple rock and roll bands, like all day, and it's all free. It's outside, open to the public, all ages. It That's one of the cooler events, and then the following week, that's the 8th, and then the following week of June. The 15th is Toxic Fest, which is another outdoor festival. Um, which started our other singer Tyler is part owner of a brewery called Toxic Brew, and they put on this festival last year for the first time, marking their 10-year anniversary, and it was one of the biggest, craziest shows we'd ever played. And here's the reason it was big and crazy: because we gave away 300 shots of whiskey right before we
Ooh,
played.
I love it.
wow. The smart
Get it
brand
pumped up.
management right there.
Yes. So
Pump
people
that
will come
audience.
out if they get free alcohol. We have a good show. Um, but we played on the back of a truck bed, like a semi truck
Oh,
bed,
love
and
it.
it was nuts. It was just bananas. No
That seems right
security
up
or anything.
your band's alley, though.
Yeah, absolutely. We're all just
Yeah.
sweating on each other, and the audience was drunk, and but it was really really fun. That's what we feed off of, because mostly people we know for the most part, and we're just partying for however long it took, and then it was over. We don't play very many shows, and I think the reason we don't is because it takes so much out of us
Mhm.
physically. We're just jumping around like idiots for 45 minutes, and then we remember that we're in our early 40s, like the
Your
next
body
day.
tells you, right?
Yeah, like, hey, buddy, you don't need to do this anymore. My knees are yelling at me,
Do
but
you have a
it's
mosh pit at your show?
depending on what the show is, but
Other
sometimes
people?
yes. Yeah.
Love it, man. And as a lead singer, you used to, I'm assuming, ride that mosh pit, and now not
Yeah.
so much.
Not no.
It's
When I was
it's been a hot minute since you did it.
when I was younger, I stage dove like 4 times, and they caught me one time. So
One of four. Ooh, that's
Wow.
not.
so it's a bad
That's a
average.
way to chiropractor.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I
Did you guys see me? I was coming.
yeah, they did, and I think because they know how big I am, they're like, no, 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 you're on
Not
your own, big
happening. You're
fella.
not squishing me.
Yeah.
That's so
So
funny.
these
That's so
days, when the crowd is really wild, because sometimes there will be younger people or smaller people in the front, and they just want to watch. So if people are getting too much, I'll just stand in the middle and
you
make
be
sure that,
protective.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want a lawsuit, and
Oh,
two, I don't want anybody to get hurt. Just for
right.
like when we're supposed to have fun. So
Exactly. Yeah, good. That's a mature mindset. Something 20-year-olds, don't necessarily think
yeah,
about. We
yeah,
can live forever when we're 20 years old.
exactly. You're invincible.
Yeah.
I'm very invincible now.
Yeah, I think that a few of us were maybe gonna come see Night
Oh,
Beast in
yeah.
action. Maybe the weekend of June 8th. It's
Hmm.
in the works.
That's awesome.
We
Oh
have been talking.
We could continue. It could be another stadium that we all go to a game together as well. The Cubs are playing in Cincy that same weekend,
Oh, that's cool.
so it could work out pretty well.
Oh, that would be
I
awesome.
think Nicholas is interested as well too. So
Okay. Oh man, that
Yeah.
would be awesome.
Some middle-aged guys coming to check out Night Beat.
We'll show you the town. Yeah, that would be awesome, because that show, I know that the For Dayton by Dayton show, we will be playing. We're not headlining. We're playing direct support. So we will be at around 7 p.m. And I think the whole
Oh,
show is over by 10. So there's plenty. Like, if you have any left in the tank, there's plenty to do on a Saturday night in June in Dayton. So we'll gladly show you the town.
True Crew
sounds
take
great.
over Dayton, Ohio. And I know there are other Ohioans that live in that area that might want to check you out too, especially some of our We Are family members. So you never know who might show.
That's
Absolutely.
wild. That's awesome.
Yeah, so cool. We support each other. That's what we do. And just like you joining us on this podcast, we appreciate you, my friend. Of course, with our wonderful theme song and, connections, lifelong connections. That's the way I look at it. And I like feeding those connections and just, it's nice to have.
It is absolutely. It really is.
And
Nick-
really
oh
quickly,
yeah. Yeah.
Sure.
what's that shirt you have on there, Nick?
Oh,
It
Allen Iverson.
I did think that was AI, and I needed the confirmation. Okay.
Is that a is that a
It's an homage shirt. You know it
I was
is.
gonna ask if it was an homage. I'm
And
not
another
wearing an
Philly
homage
team.
shirt today.
They're the most comfortable shirts. They're the best.
Yeah,
They are. I love them. Well, I wear them. My wife gets so tired of them. Like, do you have anything other than tops or Mets or something? And I'm like, no.
No.
Well, I do here. I saw my wife today, so I'm wearing a non-Amish shirt. So there you go. But yeah, I fan the way I fan, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And then you'll be back to homage tomorrow.
Yeah,
I will.
for sure.
It's
Back
in
to the
it's
comfort.
already at the top of the drawer, 100%. Nick Testa, thank you so much for joining us, my friend. It has been really a pleasure.
Yeah, we really appreciate it. Thanks for your time.
The pleasure is mine. This is really nice. It's like reconnecting with friends, but for other people to hear. It's awesome.
We love it. And thank you so much, sir. And I concur. This has been Around the Bases, the pop culture and sports podcast. I'm Tim Sternberg with my fellow host and buddy,
Charlie Seymour, and thanks again to special guest Nick Testa.
Thank you for
yes,
having me.
Nick. Thank you, sir. And until next time, folks, have a great week, and we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.